welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Kyle Case, and I'll be your host on this amazing journey as we attempt to help you get the most out of your life. Joining me in the studio today is my co-pilot, Jeff Harding. Jeff, how are you?
I'm great, Kyle. How are you?
I am great, thank you.
Welcome back, by the way. You've been gone for a while.
I know. I was just about to say I've been on the road for actually quite a while, several weeks, and Jeff and our other co-host, Andy Groft, have done truly a masterful job of filling in. So thank you both. Thanks, Jeff, especially.
On behalf of Andy, you're welcome.
Well, it's great to know that the show's in good hands, that's for sure. I most recently returned from a very successful friendship tour to the island of Barbados.
That must have been tough, Kyle.
It
must have been tough to be on an island in the paradise. I'm flabbergasted that you were able to make it back.
It's you got to suffer for your art. That's what you've got to do. But it was an amazing trip. We took several senior athletes from the States, and we went over to the island of Barbados, and we participated in their national senior games. And it was awesome. In fact, their senior games start at 40. The Huntsman World Senior Games, as many of you know, start at the age of 50. Their games start at 40. And so I turned 40 this year.
So you played?
I participated, yeah.
What sport did you do?
Well, I'm not really a track person, which was the kind of the emphasis of the tour. So I thought I would try something that would probably require the least amount of time. So I threw the shot put. And so collectively, I think I was engaged for about 7 or 8 seconds.
Now you do realize that it's not collectively each put, it's the longest one that counts, right?
Oh, well, that might explain some of the results that I got. But anyway, it was amazing. It was just an incredible experience, and not only did I really enjoy myself, but the group that was with us really had a great time. And one of the movies that played on the plane while we were there was Grudge Match. Have you seen Grudge Match?
I haven't, but I've heard it's quite entertaining.
It's a good show. It's got a great message. For those who are sensitive, it has a little bit of salty language in it, but it's a fun, good show. And it's basically a story about two former boxers who are played by Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro. So you have Rocky versus Raging Bull.
Two
right?
heavyweights playing heavyweights.
Absolutely. And anyway, they come out of retirement for one last fight, one last hoorah. And as I said, it's a great message overall, and there's some great quotes, some great one-liners. There's one part in the movie when Sylvester Stallone is talking to his old girlfriend, who is played by Kim Basinger, by the way.
Oh, tough duty again.
Yeah, she does a great job. And she says something along the lines to Sylvester Stallone's character, no matter what you guys do, you'll never be at your best. And Stallone's reply is classic, where he says, but it'll be the best we got.
Hey, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And speaking of the best we've got, joining us on the phone from Minneapolis, Minnesota is Susan Adams-Lloyd. Susan, are you there?
Hey, Susan.
Hi, guys. We're having bad weather here, so if I get cut off, I'll call you back.
Okay, that sounds good. Is it snowing?
Surprisingly, no, it's not. We have,
from here, that's bad weather.
Morning, but we had
yes,
snow
it is.
We're
at about, 86 degrees today? Is that what we're at?
We're suffering with about 86 degrees, yeah.
Sounds lovely.
Well, we're glad you can join us, Susan. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. Susan is a national champion senior athlete. She's a sprinter, and as I said, we're just ecstatic to have you here with us. She's got a great story, and we're going to get into some of that today. So just to get us started off, Susan, you obviously are at the height of your senior athlete life. You've had a lot of success. You've competed and participated in a variety of events all around the country, and won medals and set records and just had a great time. But before we get into that, which we do want to get to, I want to talk just a little bit about your athletic experience, your sports experience as a young woman or as a young girl. Have you always been into sports, Susan?
Well, I've always loved sports. I grew up in a neighborhood that had so many kids that we played lots of games, and boys and girls all played together, and everybody was welcome to play as long as they showed up and were willing to adapt to the environment. So didn't have a lot of, although I grew up in an urban environment, surprisingly, the city that I grew up in didn't have teams for girls. And so I played on boys' teams, baseball, mostly.
Wait, you said you actually played on the boys' team?
I played on a boys' baseball team, and also I was on a boys' track team.
Were you well received on those teams?
Pardon me?
Were you well received on those teams?
I was well received on those teams, actually, by the boys and the handful of girls that also played. But
Cool.
Surprisingly, in our community, after the age of 12, girls were not allowed to play on boys' teams if it was a sport where you would touch. So baseball, I had played all the way along, and like I say, my male friends all seemed to be very accepting of that. As long as you were a contributor, you played well, you could deliver results. The boys didn't seem to mind it, but the coaches did. And
is that right? The boys didn't care, but the coaches minded.
Our school district had a rule that after the age of 12, if there was any potential for athletes of mixed genders to touch, then they weren't allowed to play on the same team. So suddenly baseball was out, and I did run track. There was no girls' track team, and I did run girls' track in boys' track in 7th and 8th grade. But after that, there weren't a lot of options. So I became a figure skater. I was a figure skater all the way through the years and skated competitively till I was 20.
Now,
but that was not a college sport, and
right.
Difficult to continue after that age.
Now, Susan, you told me a story when we met at the National Senior Games annual meeting where you said that you participated on the boys' track team, and you've also alluded to the fact that the coaches were not that keen on having girls involved in these quote-unquote boys' teams. But tell me the experience that you had when you walked onto that track, and the coach. Talk about the welcome that the coach actually gave you and two of your friends. Are you there still, Susan? It sounds like... Are you there, Susan?
Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Did you hear my question?
I didn't, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, no problem. Let me repeat the question. You told me a story when we were in Minneapolis at the National Senior Games annual meeting where you mentioned that you had participated on a boys' track team. And talk about the welcome that the boys' track coach gave you and two of your female friends when you walked out there to participate.
Sure. Those were rough years because there just wasn't a broad acceptance of girls' athletics in the high school and junior high where I went as a kid. And that first day of track where we all walked out and the male coach was dividing sprinters and distant runners and the field players by their various events and expertise. And then he pointed to the three girls that were brave enough to join the team, and he said, "You guys go over there," and he placed us in the sun. And that entire season, we spent doing things that the other kids didn't. For example, the coach said, "I want to see 100 burpees. You girls want to be boys? Well, I'll make you boys." And for some reason, he thought he was going to put us through some kind of, drill that was unique to the young women on the team. And I spent most of my my 7th grade season doing burpees, and in that particular case, it was in the hot sun. And there just wasn't wide acceptance of
that doesn't sound very fun at all, Susan. It doesn't.
For young girls to participate on boys' teams or on, for that matter, on any team. So that was a rude awakening, and truly, there's a disengagement or there wasn't really an inability to feel, really part of the team. And I think by 13, 14, most girls didn't want to compete against boys. They want to compete against other girls. So
sure. Well, with a welcome like that,
it was rude awakening.
Yeah. How could you blame anybody? Now, you said that you stood on the sideline and basically did burpees. Were you ever able to compete at any of the meets at all, or were you basically sidelined the whole entire season?
We competed, but at that age, boys just physically are so much faster and better. You can look at any track scores all the way down to 9 and 10-year-olds, and young boys just have a different, body type, different muscle type, And for many of the events like the sprints, they're just stronger and faster. And,
Sure.
and so it just wasn't as satisfying of an experience as perhaps I might have had I been on a girls' team. I'm pretty athletic and have been throughout my life, but that was a really awkward time, I think, especially for adolescent girls. There's truly benefits.
Well, it is anyway, not just in the world of sports, but in life in general, that's an awkward
in life
age.
in general, in a lot of situations beyond, not just truly not just sports, but that was a prime example, I think, of why girls' sports is so important. Having gender-based opportunities, maybe even in some educational situations, has proven to be beneficial for all parties.
Yeah, well, Susan, I just wanted to, now, moving fast forward a little bit, you kind of finished up your sport career as a young person. You got into your career, and you spent some time in television, didn't you?
I did. I've worked in media for 35 years, most of those years in television. And, you know, like many working professionals with busy lives, I've had small kids and so on. It's really hard to stay active unless you really devote the time to it. So
right.
Intermittently, I took in different activities. I would say that I stayed pretty active.
Well, that's
certainly
important.
Not to the degree that I had as a young person.
It's important to stay active. Now, what was the impetus that got you back competing again, or got you into a frame of mind where you wanted to compete?
Well, certainly watching friends and family who stayed very active throughout always made me feel like I should be doing something. But it was 12 years ago. I was at a friend's retirement party when we were all toasting our friend Jerry, and our glasses were raised, and we were sitting at a long table, and I was at the opposite end from where the retiree was, and we were raising our glasses, and I said, "Hey, you know, here's to Jerry," and everybody, here, and I said, "Hey, Jerry, do you have any regrets?" And he pointed down at the end of the table, and he said, "Not a one, Susan. Do you?" And I tell this story because it was really transformative. It was like somewhere trapped in the middle of my body, somewhere between my stomach and my heart, came this bubble of energy, and out of my mouth it was almost like a cry, where I looked at him and I said, "I always wanted to be a sprinter." And it was sort of this desperate moan of disappointment.
Oh my God.
And Jerry said to me, "Well, why don't you?" And I said, "Well, because I'm a middle-aged mom and slightly overweight." And he said, no, they have track and field for old people. Because he heard about the senior games and in fact, had partaken in some of the activities and had friends who were very active in it. And everybody at the table laughed. They said, track and field for old people. But it was it was like a bolt of lightning.
It was
as if
epiphany.
Somebody had said to me, "There you go. There, for your bucket list there's still time." And it was kind of a rewind back all the way to that 7th and 8th grade, where it just had a unsatisfying experience of something that I really, really wanted to do. And it was simply that moment where I said, "There's no question. This is a calling. This is what I'm going to do."
And
so
you answered that call.
I hired a coach. I bought some spikes. I did a lot of online searching and asking around, and had 2 kind of hilarious years of trying to whip myself in shape and find an event that I could do without actually permanently hurting myself. And
very important.
I didn't look back after that. It's just been a ball.
Now, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life, and we're talking with senior track and field star Susan Lloyd from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So you actually went so far as to hire a coach, and you started to get yourself into shape. I want you to talk just a little bit, Susan, or maybe share with us your biggest senior sports moment. What was the moment where, wow, some of this work has actually paid off, and look what I've been able to do, and who would have ever thought?
Well, I can tell you there's so many moments, and some of them big and some of them very small, that have been intrinsically valuable to me. You would think it would be all the medals or all the, I don't know, I've had a little bit of press or opportunities like this where you get to feel like your career is culminating into something significant. And many of those, actually, the most satisfying are really private moments where you have a good race, or maybe you didn't even place, but you just felt so good when you ran or you had a great time. But I would tell you honestly that one of the most satisfying moments, I would say, kind of up there in my life even, not just on my track career, was the 2013 Spring Indoor Nationals, the U.S. Track and Field Nationals in Landover, Maryland. And I had, as I mentioned, it was after about a decade of really training and competing and partaking in all sorts of various activities to learn the sports and do better at it, better against myself, and certainly to be more competitive against other women in their 50s. I'm 56 years old, so I was 55 at the time. And leading up to the race, I had been training with a coach and very much focusing that season on the 400 meters, which is a really, really, really difficult race to run, and not one that most older athletes could, jump on the track and run a 400 meter well.
Not many younger athletes,
because it's one of the most difficult events.
It is a hard run. It's a sprint at 400 meters, which is difficult.
Yeah, not many younger athletes could jump on the track and do that either.
It's an event where I have a theory that it was invented by Satan himself because it is one of the cruelest events. You're really, really pushing your VO2 max and some of your thresholds to the nth degree. But I had been working on it for some time, and although having some anxiety, not so much about winning or about completing a race of that distance, but just doing my best. I really, really wanted to do well for the Nationals. So my coach asked me to set some goals, and I said, well, I'd like to make it to the finals, because in many of these races you have preliminaries and then semi-races, and then the final 6, 7, 8 runners, depending on the size of the track, how many lanes, qualify for the finals. And an indoor track, that's usually 6 lanes, which means only 6 people advance to the finals. So I had mentioned that I wanted to be among the finalists, and he said, well, that's great, but why don't you dream bigger? And I said, okay, I'd like to be in the top 4 at Nationals, and I would like to run my own PR, because running against myself is really oftentimes my greatest aspiration, more than competing against or winning necessarily.
Right.
Although that's nice, it's a byproduct of working hard. It's not always my primary goal. But in this particular case, I wanted to do well. I trained hard. And in an indoor track, which is usually 200 meters, you run it, there's 2 laps around to complete a 400. So at the 200 mark, I was in 3rd place. And I was actually really pleased, because kind of halfway through that race is where people start to fade, because you're running all out as fast as you can, and a lot of people can't hold that. In fact, almost nobody can run a 400-meter race all flat out. But I knew at 200 I had a great race going, and just kept pushing forward. And I came around the curve at that point where some of my teammates were, and they were cheering for me, and I quickly scooted up to 2nd place. And then the gal that was the previous year national champion, and in fact is a world-renowned 400-meter runner, kind of stumbled. And I took that opportunity to pass her.
You thought, aha, aha, my chance.
At 300 meters, I said to myself, oh my, what do you do when you're the leader? Because I had never practiced. I had never been, as I say, the rabbit. I'd always been the fox. And I can remember thinking about the Lord's Prayer. Thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to hold this for another 100 meters? But I really felt like I had gas in the tank, and the crowd was just so supportive. And came around the last 50 meters with the gal that had been, who I had passed to get from third to second. She stayed on my tail and took off with me, and I finished with about with a 5-meter lead or so. So it was a very tight race, and I won. I won the national championship, and I think that moment for me was just so personally defining because, you know, all those years had culminated into a dream of just being able to be on the track, and never in my wildest dreams would I ever have thought of myself as being any kind of national champion.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
It was just so sweet to share it with teammates and to be able to share that with a coach, and to have a season where I'd focused on a particular goal and over 4 or 5 months had worked hard and steadied towards that. And then everything kind of came together, and I really felt good at the race, and it just was a really sweet moment. And that helped to define my, you know, self-esteem, and just it serves as a model for in other things beyond track. I mean, it's really shown me and allows me to share with others. You never know when the universe is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, this is your dream, and I've been trying to catch up with you. So here you go, it's yours. And I really feel blessed to have had just friends and family there to watch and enjoy that and share that with me.
It had to have been just a truly emotional, almost emotionally overwhelming experience.
If you're just joining us, this
is a
is
lifetime of dreaming that all came together. And yes, it was for that reason. It's like it's never too late. I'm telling everybody, it is never too late. You never know when your dream is going to tap you on the shoulder and catch up with you.
That's the perfect message for this show, that it never is too late. And this is the Active Life, the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life, and we've been talking with Susan. Now, Susan, we're running out of time, so just quickly, give us your thoughts and feelings about the senior sports movement. What do you think that's doing for people? Do you think it's helping them stay more active and staying healthier? Just what are your feelings about that?
Well, it's the fountain of youth. It doesn't matter what you do. As I mentioned before, it's not about winning. It's not about medaling. You don't have to be a national champion. It's about a lifestyle. It's about an attitude. It's about, you know, enjoyment, meeting the friends of a lifetime, the people who partake in any kind of senior activity related to the senior games. It can be one of a multitude of sports and many events within those sports. It doesn't matter what it is. You'll find people who have attitudes like yours. You'll find people who have wonderful stories to share about how they came to their sport. In my case, how did they come to how they came by the track? Have they been doing it throughout their lives? Have they joined up late in life like I did?
Right. Now, Susan, sorry to interrupt you, but we are running out of time. I just need to ask you one quick question.
It really truly is.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're running out of time. I just want to ask you one quick question. Will you be attending the Huntsman World Senior Games this fall?
I'm sure planning on it. I've been trying to get there the last few years, but it's been conflicting with some other commitments. But right now, I'll say yes. I'll be there.
All right. Well, we will be looking for you. We will.
Yeah. There's no pressure at all. You know, you're on the radio and we're putting you on the spot. But,
I'm sure millions of people are listening right now, saying, "Wow, if she's going, I'm going."
Well, I hope that is the case. So, Susan, how do you stay motivated when you're out there? You got to be in a situation occasionally where you're having a bad day.
Boy, a bad day on the track is better than the best day in the office. That's all I can say.
I've heard that about fishing too.
It's just a joy to be there. It's a blessing to be there. So, no matter how you show up, it's just great to be there.
Well, that's fantastic. You've got a great story. We've certainly appreciated very much hearing that.
Thanks for joining us. Yes, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us and for giving us some motivation. We appreciate that. And that's.
I just quickly want to add that the 2015 games are here in Minneapolis. So when everybody goes to the Huntsman game and qualify, they can come on out to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Bloomington in July of 2015. So we'll be looking for folks there.
Nice commercial.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, don't forget to join us next Thursday at the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. For more information or to register as an athlete for the Huntsman World Senior Games, visit www.seniorgames.net. If you have any questions about the games or today's show, or if you have a suggestion for us for future shows, something you'd like to hear about, a topic or an individual person, be sure to send us an email at activelife@seniorgames.net. That's activelife@seniorgames.net, everything spelled out. And here's some closing food for thought served up by the great American.